I think there's a lot of pretentiousness that surrounds literature. There are a lot of people who view themselves as higher because they read. And so as a result, I think that getting into reading can be really off-putting and difficult for a lot of people. Especially if you're someone who's uninitiated, so to speak, then I think that reading can seem really daunting and scary. And even if you are actively reading, I think there's a sort of elitism based around what you are reading. There are people out there who feel like you have to read the classics, who feel like you have to read great stuff in order to make reading worthwhile. And elitism is by no means exclusive to this hobby. You see this a lot in metal. So for instance, if you say that Metallica is your favorite metal band, then you might get scoffed at by some people. Or if you say that you love Marvel movies, then again, film nerds might look down upon that. And so really what I'm talking about is not exclusive only to reading. But there's this strong feeling that I have that reading is one of the best things you can do. And that's it. Like there's no more to that sentence. It's reading is one of the best things you can do, period. I'm not saying that reading is one of the best things you can do if you happen to have a free moment. I'm not saying that reading is one of the best things to do if you're bored. I'm saying that reading is one of the best things you can do, period. And I think there are a lot of things about reading or literature that seem scary to people, and I don't mean just the elitism that you see occasionally in some people, but rather just the act of reading can be scary. The act of sitting down without your phone and just staring at pages for however long, for an hour, that can be scary to some people. Some people feel like they don't have the attention span necessary to read. And quite frankly, I do think that is a genuine concern. I do think that things like social media or things like video games, things like TV shows, movies, etc., they kind of decrease our attention span. And that is one of those things that has been empirically observed. It's not just me speculating, it is something that has been studied. And so as a result, if you already have focus problems, then reading might be scary to you because it's not as stimulating as playing a video game. But as I said, I think that reading is one of the best things you can do, period. And so as a result, I want to do my part in kind of demystifying reading, I guess. I don't think that you need to be an English major to read Cormac, McCarthy, or to read Dostoyesky, or an English professor to read Shakespeare. And again, as I said, if you're reading, I don't even think that you have to be into those things necessarily to get something from the hobby. I like horror stuff, and so I like stuff that some people might find pulpy. You know, I like Lovecraft, or I like Clive Barker, or I like some Stephen King stuff. It's not, you shouldn't feel like you have to read the highest of the high literature every single day. And then I've seen this as well, where some people look down upon fiction, which is strange. A lot of people think that you should only read nonfiction or self-help books or whatever. There are people out there who think that you should only read things that immediately have some kind of improving factor to them. There are people who think that you should only read stuff that will help you in your business or in your finances or something like that. If you ask me, I think there are valuable lessons to be learned in those types of books. Like Good to Great, I think, is a good one. The Mark Manson book, the orange one, is good. The one with the F word in the title, I don't remember what it's called. So I do think there are things that you can learn from business and self-help. I think that there are people out there who only read philosophy, and I think that's fine. And I think that's an area that's kind of interesting. I'm not super into it, but I do like Nietzsche. I've read a Kierkegaard book. I've read some of the Greek stuff. I like Camus. And so I think there are valuable things over there. I also read comics and manga and stuff like that. And then I think there's an element where people will only read stuff that's older. Like I mentioned, Dostoyevsky, Tolstoy, who else? I don't know, Fitzgerald. People like Hemingway, I don't really. People like Faulkner. I'm trying to look at my bookshelf and see what I have. Or sometimes people feel like they only need to read what's in the Western canon. You know, Dante, Milton, the Canterbury Tales. And again, there's great stuff there. But really what I'm trying to say with all this is that there is great stuff all around. There's great stuff in every genre or every category. And I think that if you want to get the most value from reading and the most enjoyment from reading, then I think that you should broaden your tastes, and I think that you should try something from everywhere. Read every kind of style. I think if there's an author whose work immediately appeals to you, then you should dive full into them. I've gotten into Kafka recently and I'm really enjoying it. But really, I think reading is a very special act because it's one of those few things that you can't really do with other people. You can have a book club, you can come together and read and discuss certain chapters of a book, but whenever you're actually going through it and whenever you're actually reading the freaking thing, you're doing it by yourself. You can listen to an audiobook, and I suppose that you could have someone read it to you, but for the most part, if you're reading, you're doing it alone. And I think there are very few activities like that you can truly do alone by yourself. I think that with most other kinds of media, you have the option of doing it with a friend. So for instance, if you're listening to music, you can do it with a friend. You can just turn the speaker on and listen to the music that way. If you're going to a movie, then you can invite a friend and you can see it with them or with other people in the theater. Even if you're looking at like artwork or something like that, then other people can look at the artwork with you. If you're playing a game, then oftentimes something is multiplayer, so you can play it with other people, or even if it's not multiplayer, even if it's a single-player narrative-driven experience, there's an entire culture now of streaming your game so that way your friends can see it, or watching Let's Plays. And so it feels to me like other forms of media are very much they form a community around them, I think. But reading isn't exactly the same thing because you can't do it with other people. Whenever you're reading, it's just kind of you with your thoughts. You are truly left alone in your mind to decide whether or not something is good. You know, you can read an argument written by someone, and then you can think to yourself about its merits or lack thereof. And I think that if you get really into a book, especially a work of fiction, then you can drift off into another world and be completely sucked in, unlike any other form of media. And you can certainly get sucked into a movie or a video game or whatever, but I think that it's deeper with regards to a book, just because with the book, you have to imagine everything. You're not given it. Clive Barker did an interview some years ago, and he said that that's the power of movies, is that you can immediately show someone something. You can show someone a monster on screen, and they will be able to look at it, and it will appear in their mind exactly as you want it to. But then that's also the value of books, is that you write something, and if you were to give a piece of writing to 10 different people, then each person would have a different interpretation of their writing. If you were to write about a monster, and again, give that description to 10 different people, each people would imagine the monster as being a little bit different. And so really, I think that with reading, you get a certain kind of internality that you don't with other forms of media. And so again, as I'm saying with this video, I am trying to demystify reading. I want more people to read, and I want more people to read more stuff. I do think that there's a lot of value to be gained from continually intaking art. I think there's a lot of value to be gained from listening to new albums, from playing new games, from watching new movies. And I think there's a lot of new value to be gained from reading books. And one thing I do love about books in particular is the fact that you can read stuff that was written thousands of years ago. And I do think that by doing that and by looking at how people lived in ancient Rome or Greece, then I think that you can get an idea of what human characteristics have carried through up till now. People are always amazed whenever they read like Shakespeare and they see themselves in the characters and they're like, wow, this play was written 500 years ago. But the reason why you can see yourself in characters like that is because people haven't really changed that much. People fear the same things, people want the same things, people want love and they don't like death. The great important questions have never really changed. Why am I here? What does it mean to love? What is my place in the universe? When is killing okay? And so I think that if you read regularly, if you read a lot of different stuff, then I think you'll see the benefits of it immediately. I think that you'll be able to understand people better, and I think you'll be able to connect with people better. You'll be able to see yourselves in other people. You'll have a lot more empathy, and you'll be able to figure out how to address people better. And really, I do think that reading will just make you more reflective and thoughtful, which will carry over into your own life, and I do think that it will make you a happier person overall. And again, I feel like reading can be scary. I feel like literature can be scary because of the things I've mentioned, because of the fact that there are so many great works that are, a lot older than us. I think that reading can be scary because some people expect you to go from not reading anything to jumping straight into the Brothers Karamazov, which I love. I think the Brothers Karamazov is freaking amazing, but also if you're not into reading right now, and if you're trying to get back into the habit, I would not recommend it. I'm sorry, it's 840 pages, and I'm looking at it now on my shelf, and it's freaking thick. And so I think reading is one of those things that everyone knows is good. And I think that's one of the few things that society has gotten right, because it feels like pretty much everyone in society knows that reading is good. Everyone knows that you should be reading more. Everyone themselves feels like they should be reading more. Even if you disagree on what to read, everyone pretty much knows, yeah, I should probably read more. And so again, with my overall video style and with videos like this, I want to demystify reading, and I want people to feel like it's okay to read. I want people to feel like it's okay to read garbage. I think that the love of reading has been knocked out of a lot of people, particularly through school. I myself experienced this because all throughout elementary school, I was a voracious reader. I would read all the freaking time. And then by the time middle school came around, it was kind of lame, because they would force these crappy books onto you. They would force you to read things that you didn't like. And even now, years later, I don't like the books that I read. There are plenty of books that I had to read whenever I was like 13 or 14, and I look at them now and I'm like, yeah, these books suck. And so even though I love reading now, there was a period where I did not read at all. I just played games. And again, it was because that love of reading was kind of knocked out of me. And so this is my humble request. If you once loved reading, but you haven't been reading lately, please give it another shot. Or even if you've never been into reading, then I think there's still something for you out there. I think it might take time, but I think that you will inevitably find something you love just because there's a huge swath of books available. Pretty much everything you can imagine is available. You can read horror or fantasy or classic literature, or you can read biographies or autobiographies or memoirs or nonfiction. You can just read about the world. It doesn't matter. There's a ton of crap out there. And I think that even though reading can be really, really hard to get into at first, I think that soon enough you will learn to enjoy it. I think that if you commit to reading 5 or 10 pages a day, then soon enough you'll be reading more. You'll be wanting to read more. But really, I think that's kind of the key, is you have to do it every day, or at least close to every day, just as you have to do with any other habit you're building up. But really, I love reading. I think it's great. Again, I think it's one of the best things you can do. I think more people should be doing it. I think I should be doing it more, and I'm already reading a lot. There's just so much great stuff out there, and there's so much to love and appreciate. So if you want book recommendations, drop a comment down below. Say what you like, say what you're interested in, say what you've liked before. I promise I'll do my best to give you a recommendation for what to read next, but there are blind spots I have, so I'm not familiar with everything. But even if I don't have good recommendations, then I'm sure someone else does. So please drop your requests down below. And if you have a recommendation for someone, then go ahead and give it to them. So thank you for watching. Have a nice night. And yeah, I don't know, happy reading, I guess. So bye.
The novel is a whole different experience. The relation between the maker, myself, and the, I don't want to say receiver, because the reader is far less passive than a viewer of a movie is. The co-creator of a novel, that is to say the reader. Co-creator for this reason, that if I was to take a scene from Nightbreed and show it to 6 people and ask them when they'd seen that scene to describe the scene, we might say that by and large they'd seen the same thing. By and large they'd experienced the same thing. I might then ask those same 6 people to read a scene from The Great and Secret Show, from the new novel, and describe to me what they'd experienced in the reading of that. And I guarantee we both know that there will be 6 radically different experiences, because to every adjective in those sentences, to every nuance of description, the readers will be bringing different sense memories, different information. One person may have a fear of water, which is fundamentally going to change the way that they imagine a drowning scene. Somebody may have had an experience of drowning in the bath. Somebody may really rather be a wonderful swimmer. They're going to bring to that experience a whole set of personal information, biography, if you like, which they are going to help co-create the novel with me. They're going to use that information. In a movie, there it is. Take it or leave it. There it is. It's one of the reasons why movies are so powerful. It's also, I think, one of the reasons why movies are not as important, finally, as art experiences, as books, because they can never be quite so intimate.